Vice President Mike Pence is heading back to Washington, D.C. tonight following a 3-day trip here in California.
Yeah, this afternoon he toured the Mojave Air and Spaceport to get a first-hand look at developments in commercial space business. That's where we find Eyewitness News reporter Kyle Harvey, who joined the Vice President on his tour. Kyle.
Jeff, Hannah, Pence's staff told us earlier today that this was not going to be a policy stop for the vice president. Rather, it's going to be an educational trip for the vice president. Because of that, we see him today did a lot more listening than he did talking to the people that he was meeting with here today. Earlier this summer, President Trump signed an executive order that reestablished the National Space Council, and he made the vice president the chairman of that council. So today we can kind of assume that this was part of those duties as that chairperson. Now, Pence taxied up to the Mojave Air and Spaceport here at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, and it's really amazing how many people travel, are involved with this, with the Vice President and the Second Lady when they do travel. Air Force 2 is a huge plane, and the people just kept streaming off of it. The couple got out of the plane eventually, waved to the crowd, then heard a bit of a presentation here from the people who operate the Air and Spaceport about what goes on here. He was then taken right away into a nearby Virgin Galactic hangar. That's where he and a lot of the press got to walk around the White Knight. That's sort of a large ferry, so to speak, that will be taking smaller rockets into lower orbit, sort of the edge of space. Now, Virgin plans to use this for commercial space tourism, where people can pay for a view of our planet and experience weightlessness for a little bit. And Pence was listening as everyone was talking to him. His eyes kept darting all the way around the room. It was just, there was a lot of eye-grabbing pieces of aircraft, of engines, and things in various stages of development in a huge hangar. So he seemed very interested in what was going on there. Next, he was taken then to the Strato launch hangar, and that is another. It's another heavily guarded building, but otherwise very nondescript. You would never know, looking at it from the outside, what was stored inside. Now, Stratolaunch is building the world's largest aircraft. It has 2 huge fuselages and a giant wing that is longer than a football field. So just that gives you an idea of the size the hangar has to be to store this aircraft. And like the White Knight that Virgin's building, this will be ferrying smaller aircraft to the edge of space, but instead of people, this is going to be ferrying stuff. Think satellites and other pieces of equipment, things that will someday be a part of a space commerce that we really don't even quite know about yet. So he posed for photos there, met a lot of the people that are involved in building this aircraft, and then was whisked away just about as fast as he arrived. Now, the Vice President will be headed back to Washington, D.C. at this point. The trip included stops in Las Vegas, in Indianapolis, as well as 3 days in California, which included a brief stop in Bakersfield. And for more on that stop, we turn now to Kristen Powers, who's in the studio. Kristen?
Yeah, Kyle, before Vice President Mike Pence made his trip to Mojave, he made a stop at Crystal Palace for a GOP fundraising event. There he faced both chanting protesters and local supporters.
As Vice President Mike Pence and Congressman Kevin McCarthy touched down in Bakersfield.
Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
Crowds of protesters anxiously awaited their arrival at Buck Owens Crystal Palace.
Show me what democracy looks like.
Hoping to get their message out loud and clear.
This is what we need. Health care for all.
That's Julie Otero. She feels the Trump administration is not listening to voters.
We feel like orphan children in our own county.
Sin justicia.
For protesters, this is a chance to get their voices heard when it comes to topics of health care, women's rights, Social Security, and immigration.
Whether you're a woman, a member of the LGBT community, an immigrant, a person of color, we're here with you. We stand with you. We support you. And Pence, you're not welcome here.
God bless Vice President Pence.
Down the street, a small, quiet group showing support.
President Trump and Vice President Pence are doing the best job they can.
That idea was echoed inside the fundraising event. People saying Pence talked a lot about job growth, taxes, and our military.
There are positive changes that are moving forward.
Be power!
As far as Pence and McCarthy acknowledging the protesters outside,
They didn't mention any of that. No, it was a really positive event.
Congressman David Valadao could also be seen at the event. Now, at one point, Secret Service went up to the protesters and asked them to move across the street for safety. Some people vocally fought back, but in the end, they did move, and it was a peaceful protest. Reporting in studio, Kristen Powers, Eyewitness News.